Do I need new batteries? Now there's no light.
This one's
Oh, mine's on.
Don't mind the ticking.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending the Village of Woodbury Planning Board meeting of May 1st, 2019. To my right, we have Robert Anzalone. To my left, Sandra Capiglone. Chris Gerber. I'm telling you, it's not a good day.
There was only one meeting I missed.
I know, I forgot who you are. Gail Nogle, our secretary. Over to the far left, we have Kelly is our attorney, Dennis Lindsay, our engineer, Stu Turner, our planner, and John, our traffic engineer, and I'm Maria Hunter, your chairperson. Jeff, can you please get batteries in this one, please? It's not. I want that one. Okay, has everyone had a chance to read the minutes from April 17th? If so, do I have a motion to accept?
I make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, has everyone had a chance to review local law number 3, comprehensive plan amendment, discuss and review proposed amendments to comprehensive plan, provide report to village board of trustees?
Yes.
Okay, so, Kelly, how do you want to handle this?
We can explain the law to you, or if you've all read it, you can talk about this one. We'll take notes. Usually you authorize Dennis to draft a report back to the Board of Trustees. I will let you know that for this local law, the Board of Trustees introduced an amended version from this comprehensive plan law. It was like 2 typos. I think one, it said compare when it should have been compared.
That's Jeff, the mic is on. I have it on. I have it turned on.
Oh, you do?
Yes,
Well, that was me.
that was you.
He just thought I was making extra noise.
No, it's me. Thank you. No, it's,
And the second change was it said Woodbury Commons. We changed it to Woodbury Common. just
What was
so
the
you know.
first one, Kelly?
It said, I think, compare, and it should have been compared, or it was compared, and it was a typo.
Oh, okay.
So the 2 changes for the comprehensive plan were typos. Same as what you have in front of you.
okay, because I was going to ask you to remove the S but to add premium outlets, because that's their proper name.
Oh, it was
It's Woodbury Common Premium Outlets.
I think I unscrewed that.
And that's on page 1, and it's also on page 2 at the top. And Harriman Commons is Harriman Commons, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I checked
I
on
figured
that
since
one.
we'll keep their proper names, so they're, all right. Robert, any thoughts, concerns on local law number 3?
Let's see, there's 2 of them, right?
Right. So
There's
I'm
one,
only-
I was a little concerned about the height issue with cooling towers and air conditioning. Is that the second one?
That's the second one.
Okay.
So,
The boundaries, is that the first one? We have the boundaries?
The first one was just the adjustment in section 5.3 of the comprehensive plan, where it talked about where this overlay district,
Okay.
where the one should be created.
I'll give you an extra microphone, please.
I think this one's work.
I'll give you an extra one. All right. So you okay with that? The boundary map, as you can see,
Yeah.
Dennis made an enlarged map
Yes.
over there.
That'll be for local law, introductory local law.
That's for the next one, but those are the boundaries. All right. Sandy, anything on local law number 3?
No, I'm good with that one.
Chris?
Yes, I'm good with it as well.
I'm good with that, with the changes, so that's the only changes to submit to the village board. Dennis, you're doing that? Where's Kelly?
Yes, but what, just the changes,
The
Yeah.
premium outlet.
Oh,
premium outlets, okay?
Dennis, do you have anything to add or change on that law?
No, that's on the comprehensive law. I'll defer to Stu if he has any comments.
Stu, I thought I saw something from you for number 3.
No, I have nothing to suggest changing. We had been involved with the comprehensive plan over a long period of time. This actually strengthens the whole notion of maintaining the viability of the hamlet. So we felt it was a positive local law.
Perfect. All right, with that being said, we'll authorize the consultants to send a letter to the village planning board, the village board of trustees that local law number 3 is okay with those 2 changes. We need to-
Who's drafting that?
Stu, not Stu, Dennis
Den-
and Kelly, one of the 2.
Okay.
Did you make the motion, or?
Do we have to have a motion on this, or we're just recommending?
I think it's cleaner for a motion. It sounds like you just made one.
All right,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, now we can go on to local law number 4.
So on this one, I just wanted to let the board know there were a couple of changes that the Board of Trustees reintroduced this one as well. The key parts are still the same, but I just want to make you aware of what those changes were. The first one essentially was a typo, but it's on the top of page 2, where it talked about the schedule of zoning district regulations, removing hotels and motels from the LC and the IB districts. I said it was in the accompanying zoning table, but I didn't attach those. We can just advise that those come out. So the word accompanying is removed.
Okay.
On page 3, number 5, discussing frontage, the first change was, there was a typo, Larking, it should be Larkin. And that paragraph now reads, frontage, the property shall have frontage of at least 100 feet along Larkin Drive or on a state or county highway or right-of-way. Said frontage shall permit the ability to directly access these roadways for vehicular ingress and egress to the property. And then the rest remains the same. So it just inserts a sentence saying that that frontage, you have to have the ability to directly access those roads. And the last change is the board, be on page 5, included a new section 6. So section 6 effective date now is section 7. And section 6 states exemption. All projects that received conditional final approval or final approval for a hotel construction from the Village of Woodbury Planning Board and have such approvals in effect on the date that this local law becomes effective are exempt from this local law and may proceed under the prior applicable zoning laws. And
Okay.
those are the only changes.
And then the attachment, I noticed that both Dennis and Stu picked up on it, as I did as well, with the accessory, with the zoning district. Accessory uses number 6, the last page of that, it says, other facilities approved by the Board of Trustees. Why are we doing Board of Trustees and not the Planning Board? I'm just-
I don't know, but I think you should put it in the report and they can,
Yeah, because I know both Dennis and Rick, not Rick.
We were just questioning whether that's what the Board of Trustees wants. If that's what
That's
the
right.
Board of Trustees wants, they're visiting a responsibility upon themselves, and they many times delegate to the board. So if that's what they want, then that's the law. But if you think it should be the planning board, or if you have a preference, then you should advise us, and we'll put that in the letter. We just noted that it's different than their normal practice that we see in the zoning
Yeah.
there.
I don't know how the other board members feel, but if an applicant comes before us and they have a different accessory use, and it only is going to extend the process of them getting to the village board when they have a time to put them on their agenda, when they can review it, how they return back to us. So to me, it's making the application process longer. And I would suggest personally that it be the planning board, not the Board of Trustees.
Yes,
Robert?
I agree.
I
Sandy?
agree.
I agree.
Chris?
I agree.
Stu?
I
I
agree.
see you shaking your head over
Yeah,
there.
no, I agree. I mean, historically, we've always recommended that, at least in the last probably 20 years, that planning board issue special permits, and it avoids the duplication of procedures. So, yeah.
All right, and then, I know Stu's report, there's a couple things of, I don't know if the board members have seen that, about having the hotel overlay district should match, and the transit village should be the same.
With the 40-foot, 4-story, right? And something else.
Which number?
Well, there's number 2, which is about the height limit, The TV district has 4 stories. This new proposed law has 5 stories or 60 feet, whichever is less. So I think it's a suggestion, which I agree with, that they should be the same.
And there was something about the kitchens too, right?
Yes, I had
There's a
that highlighted.
discrepancy.
I had that highlighted as well, but I was going by Stu's.
It was number 6, I think.
The design standards in proposed section E prohibiting kitchen facilities and long-term rentals for hotels are not in place in the TV district. The only thing is, if you go back to page 4, it says guest sleeping rooms shall not contain kitchen facilities or equipment such as or similar to the following: full refrigerator, oven, stovetops, or hot plates. Some of these hotels do have microwaves and a little mini refrig, and I don't know if we need to address that or acknowledge it and have the board suggest to the Board of Trustees, except for, because some of these hotels, you go out to dinner, you bring your
Yeah.
dinner home, or you want to back to the hotel.
Marriott hotels are now, they have been experimenting with allowing long-term renting with
Right.
kitchens. They have that in Los Angeles. They've started that in New York City. So it's a trend you're probably going to see more of.
I agree
This is
not to,
prohibiting long-term rentals.
right, I agree to prohibit, but I'm looking at the law itself.
Well, I agree with you too. I mean, I don't think it should be, but this is coming about, unfortunately.
Yeah, so how do you, Sandy, what do you want to recommend to the Board of Trustees?
So for number 6 you're talking
Well,
about, or
num-
both of them?
Well, number 6, yes, for that, and also on page 4, where it says number 1 at the top, about where it says guest rooms, law itself, it says, shall not contain full refrigerator, oven, stovetops, or hot plates. But what I was saying is, most of your hotels now have a microwave, they have
Right.
they have a Keurig, or they have a little mini refrig. Is that going to prohibit the hotels from having that? So it needs to, number 1
Well, I
on
think
page.
because it's not saying
Yeah.
microwaves, microwaves would be allowable.
You can be as specific or as broad as you wish. If you want to just avoid kitchens, so it's not a boarding house and that sort of thing, and it's a hotel, you can simply advise that, and then they, could say that you saw things in there such as hot plates, which may not be appropriate. You may want to permit that and not others. I mean, you could do that, or you could be specific if you wish.
Because I know in the past, from years ago, Rick Golden has always said, if it's not written, you can't
Well,
force
no,
it.
the board will
So
have to be
that's-
specific. I'm
yeah,
talking about
that's-
your guidance to
Yeah.
the Board of Trustees.
I remember I went to a couple of their long meetings on this overlay district, and I thought that that's what the thinking was, that if they're specifically saying what shall not contain,
Right.
then anything else.
Understood, but let's say in 10 years from now, all 5 of those board members are no longer on the Village Board of Trustees. Someone might have a different opinion, and if it's not written, it's not there.
But would it be easier to advise what we feel should be contained?
Yes.
Instead of what, like an automatic coffee machine, a microwave, and a sink? The only things we feel should be allowed in, like a
So
kitchen.
do it in the
like
reverse.
In the room, like a kitchenette almost.
Right, that's something like that, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
We don't want
I
to,
think it's easier to say what would be allowed than what's not allowed, because someone's gonna come up with another name for something, and,
right, and that's,
oh, it's not really a coffee pot, it's, it's an espresso maker, but you know how people get,
Yeah.
they kind of interpret.
but that's just, that's just my thinking with that.
So then on number 1, rather than shall not,
Shall only be allowed to contain the following:
Like a microwave, a coffee
a coffee
pot, and a mini fridge, because sometimes when you go out to dinner, if you're away somewhere, you want to,
or you're traveling with small children,
Yep.
you gotta put
The
formula
bot-
something
right.
somewhere.
medication.
yeah.
You might want to suggest to them, because obviously the reason is, I think, to try to preclude long-term residents or permanent residents. But following Chris's suggestion, you want to be specific or give them guidance to say that you really would like them to eliminate the notion of a permanent kitchen-type facility like a stove. So it's what you want to have these small appliances. You're not suggesting that they be precluded. So the word kitchen, I think they use kitchen facilities.
Right.
And if there's a better way to define that, that's fine. But you know what they're trying to accomplish, and I don't think they're trying to preclude what Bob's saying, that in a lot of hotels, they do have facilities that you can heat things and, you know, whatever. I'm finished because it went on.
Okay, all right. I know we, what else in stews? I mean,
Well, could we zero in on that one? Let's just make sure I understood it.
let's step back.
It's okay for a coffee machine, a mini fridge,
A mini fridge?
a hot plate?
No.
No, okay. A sink?
Well, the sink is the bathroom.
There's a sink, okay, so we won't
No
say that.
sink other than.
Now, anything, okay, other than a coffee
microwave?
machine and mini fridge, what else?
Microwave. three
Microwave?
items. Yep.
Microwave is okay.
Could we define mini fridge as far as cubic feet?
No.
Maybe
No?
it should be cubic content. Sorry, I had to say that.
There's all different sizes now
Yeah.
with kids going to college, so
Yeah.
I would, just the general use of mini fridge, and if full refrigerator is prohibited,
Yeah.
I think you're gonna be covered.
I think someone will be able to tell the difference between a Sub-Zero side by side and a little like 5.5
Yeah.
cubic foot.
Yeah, but I know what you're
But,
saying.
well,
It's not
you never know
32,
whether they're going to push it.
inches,
So are we leaving it
Enough
with
to have
that?
an ice cube tray big enough for an ice cube tray.
Usually, yeah, mini fridge.
Are we going to leave it with that, or are you going to say things that are not permitted, such as stoves and dishwashers and that sort of thing? Or do we just want to leave it with what you think should be permitted, those few items?
Do we want to add what they can have and leave what they, I think it's confusing.
Yeah, I think it should be the following kitchen appliance, only the following kitchen appliances will be permitted. I think a dishwasher by definition is a kitchen appliance.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody that has one like in a bathroom, so it'd be like a far, like kind of stuff like that would be a far, I think would be a far stretch to make an argument.
Okay, so we'll just leave the items that you said could be,
These are the only
should be.
items.
Okay, okay, only items.
All right.
Got it.
All right, so then if we step back to Stu's memo, I just want to, we want to maybe suggest to the village board that they take a look at their TV, their transit village section, that they might want to revise it once the hotel law is put into place. Maybe we can suggest that to the village board, that they have the transit village and the hotel district, overlay district match. I mean, we can ask for that as well, correct?
But what are we, are we?
Yeah.
Are we saying it should match the transit district, or the transit district should match
match
the
this.
hotel overlay?
Transit should match the hotel. In the height of the hotel, in the height of the hotels. Do you want to discuss the height of the hotels?
Yes.
Okay. What page is, all right, let's go back to the law then. Where page is that on?
There was something about exceptions on page
Number,
3.
it's on page 3, the top of page 3.
All right, so page 3, number 3, height exceptions. The maximum height permitted shall not apply to rooftop bulkheads, elevator penthouses, cooling towers, or air conditioner or heating equipment, provided that such features shall not occupy in aggregate more than 10% of the area of the roof.
And then in the.
I guess
actual
before
zoning
that-
regulations, it says,
The height is actually in the table,
Yeah.
and those are just the exceptions that don't count towards the height.
the lesser of 5
And it's
square.
in the hotel overlay district schedule.
In the zoning.
The zoning already has a provision that allows similar items to exceed the hotel, the height limit in the code, generally. Those spires, chimneys, whatever.
So
I don't think that language is different.
currently like an elevator machine room.
Right.
Say it was a cable-driven elevator, not a
Yeah.
piston. So that elevator machine room wouldn't be included in the overall height of the building, currently in our code.
Generally, that's correct.
Correct.
Okay.
And the spires too, there's certain things around, antennas, they don't count.
How high can some of these cooling towers and other rooftop structures be? I mean, I've seen some of them quite tall on buildings.
It says it's exempt. I imagine that it starts dominating the site. You have ARB review, you might have some other discretion to exercise.
I mean, my feeling on it is, I mean, I took a ride around Orange County. Really, the only 5-story building I can find is Orange Regional Medical Center. You go up to Middletown, which I guess would be a good comparison for Woodbury as far as building density. Almost everything up there is a 4-story building. There's very few. I think, like I said, I was hard pressed to find one 5-story building. I think coupled with the geography of the intended hotel overlay district, a 5-story, 60-foot structure on top of a 60, 70, 100-foot mound of building, you're actually going to be higher than Sigenzilla that's over there, or the cell towers intended over there. You know, I think personally, and I think a large population of Woodbury never really wanted to see a 60-foot building in front of them. That's a big building. You know, I think 4 stories is good. I think 4 stories is ample. I think it gives the hotel industry plenty of room to put, you know, plenty of rooms. You know, you look over at the building that just went in on 208. That's a 3-story hotel, a 2 or 3-story hotel over there. You look at the new office building that's going up on 208 and 17. That's a 5-story building, and it is just so out of place for the area and for what people here are used to. I think 40 feet is a good height. I think it's a good compromise, and that's personally my feeling. And I think if you asked a lot of the people of Woodbury, they would feel the same way.
40 feet is 4 stories.
4 stories.
Roughly, yeah.
Roughly, it's 12 feet in a commercial building, so, I mean, I guess the suggestion would be 40, what is that? Oh, God, now I gotta do math. 4 stories or
48.
48 feet.
I disagree with you, because in that section where the hotel overlay district is, and then also down by the transit village, let's say you take Woodbury Center. They already have a hotel down there. Now you have the Shops of Woodbury. They want to come in and put their 5-story hotel in. It's not in a residential area.
Right.
That's my feeling. That's why it can go up to 60 feet. And also down, you have Woodbury Common. They're down in a
pit.
in a pit. So you're not going to see 5 stories from 32. The only place I do have a concern would be behind on Turner Road. Those homes that are there now, where Printing Plus is back, they're looking to put a hotel in there. Those buildings are going to come down, and then you have a motel across the street.
But it's a 2-story structure. I mean, if, you know, I hear what you're saying, and if, you know, you want to go with a 5-story building is good, then in my opinion, the overlay district should end at the Commons.
I agree with you.
It should not come down into the residential area then.
I would say the north entrance to Woodbury Common should be the cutoff point.
Yes, not down towards Turner and, what is that, Rose or
Turner,
Turner?
yeah,
Bond down
yeah.
there.
I agree with you on that part. I don't, you know, we could suggest that back.
There's,
Oh,
there's just one thing on that thread. If that's the case, do you want to stop it there, or do you want to say that if it extends up there, that they could be there, but they'd have to be 4 stories, or something along those lines?
I would personally, again, my opinion, I would stop the hotel overlay at the Commons. I think once you get past the Commons, you've built into residential area. I think even looking at a 4-story building out my front window is a little bit much.
did the hotel on Estrada, that was 3 or 2-story?
Thought it was 2.
2.
It's 2.
There's, yeah, 'cause
Yeah, that
they're
was a-
still on
yeah,
the
that-
35.
Yeah.
And the motel that's currently there now, that's a 2-story. And
Yeah.
I think,
2 more stories on top of that is a very big difference when you're looking at something.
I have to agree with you on that part. Robert?
I would agree with that, and I'm a little concerned that, you know, part of the beauty of Woodbury are the hills that surround it. And I would hate to see obstruction of that view. I mean, that's the beauty of the town. You know, when you enter into Central Valley and Highland Meadows, you know, you see those hills. So I'm concerned about that.
I mean, we already have a 4-story building up on the hill that people see when they're coming down over the mountain with the high school.
Yeah.
They think that's a hotel or something else.
But then if, if you kicked it back to 4 stories, then it would blend in with what's already existing. You already have a 4-story building there, you add another 4-story building, and for the sake of lack of a better word, it blends. When you add another 20 feet on top of that, it's plus cooling towers, plus a power pit, plus depending on what type of elevators they put in there. If they put a machine room up there, you're looking at another 12 feet on top of a 60-story structure. So now you're looking at a potential of 72 feet with a full, again, if they went with cable-driven elevators.
Right.
It's typically a floor for the machine room.
All right, so do we want to suggest then, back to the village board, that the boundary be changed to the north entrance of Woodbury Common South and not at Turner?
Well, I also had a question, though, about the 60 feet. Do we, at the present time, do we have fire trucks that can reach that?
You have a 75-foot rear mount aerial, but it's a loaded question because it would be based on where the truck would be positioned in the front of the building.
Right, and then usually, like the 4-story parking deck that we have at the Common, the fire department had them install fire stands, what do you call them?
Standpipes.
They got
Standpipes, thank you.
standpipes and-
And there's one,
there's-
and the fire department said, no, anything that's higher than 2 stories, we're gonna go in with our own, they're gonna go into it physically with a hose. So I don't know what the fire department feels about this.
See, that's,
Yeah,
Typically, in my experience, you only would use an aerial ladder in a structure like this to get to the roof. It would be a quicker way for a member to get to the roof, to get the machine rooms, open a bulkhead. You're not normally going to be doing any sort of suppression operations unless the entire place is involved. Or rescues via roof ladder. Most of these buildings are sealed windows, they don't have rescue windows. The life safety systems in them, they're meant to be compartmentalized, where the fire is meant to be contained to the room of origin. All sorts of smoke dampers, fire doors. To me, that's not a huge concern.
so what we have now
For-
could
Could
take
work.
care of it? Okay.
The roofman could get to the roof based on, as long as somebody didn't decide to park like 2 semis next to each other in the front of the building.
I know.
But that would be, making sure we have enforcement of, or making sure we provide for a fire zone around the entire front of the building so that they would have
right.
access.
And I know we have, if you take the high school into account, the height of the building there, I know there's mutual aid, and I know if there was ever an emergency, Monroe was supposed to come over and back us up.
Yeah.
But they can, I just want to make sure that the
Yep.
ESOs are,
Yeah.
can accommodate that.
Yep.
Excuse me.
All right, so let's go back to, which one do we want to take first now? We
Oh,
talked
you had a
about
question out. Do we want to change?
the
this?
height. No, okay, let's go, all right. Do we want to ask the board to consider going from the north entrance, Woodbury Common, to south, and to keep everything else in place, and take away Turner Road?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes? So if you can request the board, the village board,
Starting at Woodbury Common and going south,
correct, the north,
within the area they've shown, taking off Turner Road and whatever else accessory areas over there. Okay.
okay, so that,
And that's for it's concern about height, and it's also, you're going to maintain the 5 stories?
well, we haven't gotten there yet.
Okay.
Robert, the height of the building, 5 stories, 60 feet?
It depends where it's going to be located. I mean, Woodbury Commons, you do have it's down further. It's a little bit of a problem. I mean, where are we going to measure from? The road?
Road
or-
height, from the main road and
Just
then-
like we did with the towers that were there.
Yeah. I mean, down by the Transit Village, if they want to put a 5-story building, residential, there's none. There's 2 houses across the street, but they're down in a pit also. So that wouldn't affect anyone with a 5-story building. You'll see it from the throughway. People are driving by. The other place would be,
Well, the shops,
Shops in Woodbury.
Going to be the highest point.
that would be the highest point. And it just, and they're actively before us, so I don't know, where do they fall under the code?
They're covered under this.
They're covered.
their plans, I think there was still a little bit of a coverage
Yeah.
issue, but their height and everything fits if this goes through.
Okay.
the way it is.
So at this point, I say leave that portion of the building height that they proposed in the overlay district in their zoning district. Sandy?
What's the height of that one?
I still think it's
Is that 4 or 5 feet, the overlay
It's 60
district that you
feet,
just
and it's-
mentioned?
Overlay
5
district, the
stories.
zoning code says building height, the lesser of 5 stories / 60 feet. I mean, the board went through that, and, I mean, I have to respect the board for that. I mean, I didn't respect the board for something else, but that's okay. With the refrigerators and whatnot. No, it's just, what do you, well, Sandy's thinking, Chris, what do you?
Yeah,
I mean, I think I'm good with 4 feet, 4 feet. We're gonna have tiny town now. I would be good with a 4-story cap, and that make it align with the transit district.
and the high school is 4 stories.
Right, and the high school is 4
4
stories.
stories.
What do you-
Yeah, I think I would like to see the 4 stories as well.
I mean, as we all know, this is only suggestions, that's gonna go
Yeah,
back.
board, it's up to the village board.
It's up to the village board to make their decision, so Sandy and Chris, if you want to put in your note, they would like it to stay at 4 stories, which would be 40/48 feet. Robert, you're saying,
Yes, 4 stories.
you're saying 4 stories? Oh, I'm gonna change you over
Yes.
to, and I'm saying stay at the 5 feet.
Okay.
Of the 5,
I was just.
tiny town.
I was just
Thank you,
talking about
Chris,
that.
thank you.
And I can advise the board that the board was split.
Yeah.
And that 3 members wanted this, and 1 member thought that the.
And one was absent, okay. All right, what else on this hotel law?
I think coverage. I think it's a 10% jump in coverage area from current zoning to now. Now you're allowing, this would allow for 75% in coverage. I think Stu pointed out
Transit
60.
village is 60.
Yeah. I think it's, again, a considerable increase in impermeable, big word, surface area coverage. I think it should remain at the 60% or where we are today. I left that
But that,
in alone,
yeah.
sorry.
But that's the, because I was thinking about the same thing, but that's where I had a question, because IB is 65%, and that's what they're allowed right now, right?
ID. Yeah, the main, you have to make a decision on what you think, but the reason for the comment is that there's inconsistency in an area that they're trying to, this is the economic development core, and
Right, but what
We
I'm
were
saying
just
specific
thinking
to
that
the
you should talk about
shops
that.
is that if they're allowed 65 now and we go to 60, then we're taking it
yeah.
down
Oh,
even
okay,
more.
yeah, I mean, if it's 65, well, I'm sorry, if it's 65 now, then I think we should stay at 65. I don't think we should basically give another 10%, because, and not even the shops at Woodbury, but in general, you look at a project of that size, and that's a 10% increase in coverage is,
Especially on a larger,
in a larger project, is considerable.
Robert?
I'd say leave it at the 65.
I disagree. I'm going with the village board, and that the TV district match and be adjusted. What's the matter? Oh, Sandy says, she said 65.
I said, I would say to keep it as it is.
So 365 and 175 again?
Yes, sir. That's the coverage. We did the height. We did the boundary. And we said about the kitchen facilities. Anything else that anyone has pointed out in the law that they want to discuss that we have not discussed?
Yes. Okay, on, under design standards, over on page 4, number 2, it says, guest sleeping rooms shall not be used as apartments for non-transient tenants. I didn't see apartments defined anywhere.
Good point.
I didn't see it defined in our code.
Not in the code at all?
I looked, I couldn't
No,
find
you
it. I
made-
saw
you
a
made the
dwelling
line.
unit, I saw,
Multiple dwellings, but that's not, I mean, that's.
but I didn't see any specific definition for apartments, so it's because, I mean, there's a studio apartment, and in Manhattan, it could be, 10 by 9 foot room.
So why don't we suggest that we take out as apartments and just say for non-transient tenants, and that
Well,
covers
then,
just about
that goes to
everything.
my next question, is I don't see where any kind of length of stay is defined.
I know length of stay is defined in the B&B, bed and breakfast.
Right,
There's
but
something in the
it's-
B&B.
But in
I mean, a
here,
hotel, you have a construction project that's going on. It's been 2 years with Exit 131. Maybe someone doesn't want to travel back and forth for 3 hours to go home.
No, but-
So they want to stay in a hotel. So is that considered,
but what I'm saying is, I think an apartment usage and length of stay would go hand in hand. If they're using a room, or in this case, they say they could be 2 rooms, if they're using 2 rooms, they could basically use that as an apartment, or my definition in my head of an apartment, and since there is no definition of an apartment,
Sandy, excuse me, one possibility is to change the word apartment to dwelling, because dwelling is defined and it talks about a portion of a building or building used as living quarters.
right, that's why I'm saying apartment, since there's no definition, it's vague, so if we could change that to something that's defined.
well, you just suggested
and
dwelling.
then- Yeah,
Dwelling unit, yeah.
and then even, I'm thinking that a length of time would have to be put in there, because,
What's
How
the
do
B-
you do that?
The B&B, what do they have in as I think it's 2 weeks, 14 days or something with a B&B? But like I said, how are you going to stop someone who's doing construction work up here and they're living there?
well,
Or-
if they're gonna rent it for 2 weeks, they would have to just renew it every 2 weeks or whatever. In other words, they're just not staying, I think what they're trying to do is stop full-time use, but
But then who's going to maintain that? Who's going to go down there every 2 weeks to check the roster of who's living there?
But that's what I'm saying, so then with this number 2, how is that enforced?
That would be incumbent upon the applicant who applies for a hotel to be built. I guess they would have to know, that would have to be in their resolution of approval, that the hotel whoever runs the hotel has to be made aware that they can't have dwellings for non-transient tenants. And then that's up to the building department, it's out of our purview, and then it has to be Gary and John to go out there and do inspections. And I don't know how you're going to stop that.
Unless the intention was for, say, like an extended stay hotel. There are, my corporation, when we have people come in for 6 months, they have an extended stay
Yep.
hotel. They're there for 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, a
Yeah.
year. So in my interpretation, that would be an exclusion, not allowing an extended stay hotel to be built. Which sole purpose is to keep people there a long time. I mean, I think if we extrapolate it logically, if you only have a microwave and a 5 cubic foot refrigerator, how long are you really gonna wanna stay in this place, right?
Hey, if you're a single person, you could do that for a long time.
I couldn't survive, no.
Okay. I would like them to look at number 2 a little bit more, put it that way.
Well, you have to give them something to look at. So you're asking that the word apartment be removed and put dwellings, because that's in our code right now, as Stu suggested. So Dennis, are we all agreeing that we can suggest that the word dwellings should be used instead of apartment?
Yes.
I think it should be.
Yeah, I could agree
You,
with that.
okay. That's a suggestion, Dennis, to change the word apartments to dwellings. And then we have to come up with some kind of a suggestion that
Well,
someone's
if
not going to
you
live
think-
there.
I mean, if the rest of the board doesn't think a length of stay, a defined length of stay has to be in there, then
Because I don't see how,
I mean, I would agree, I'm gonna agree with Maria on this. I think it would be something that would be so unenforceable
Yeah.
that it'd be words on a page that
Okay.
really wouldn't, I mean, I guess if you really wanted to, you could, make a suggestion to exclude on-site laundry facilities. So, I see you cringing.
Well, then you could be impacting their business if they're
Business,
trying to
yeah.
do their own laundry.
Right.
Oh, because, yeah, for all towels and
Yeah.
stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
All right,
We all want clean towels.
we do.
we do. So at this point, is there anything else that anyone has thoughts or concerns
Yeah.
about? Robert, you're good?
I'm good.
Sandy,
Yeah.
something else?
Yeah, because Stu had brought it up, and I think Dennis, may have brought it up too, about the parking and the setback.
In the front,
Yeah,
there's-
that's a technical item. They'll have to consider that. If there's a conflict in the law, I think that should be brought to their attention,
Yeah,
the potential conflicts.
yeah, because it's,
They can always exempt this, but they shouldn't ignore it, that's all.
Did someone raise the heat in here?
The heat,
No, I'm hot.
the heat
I
is.
said, did someone raise it? Because I'm like,
cold, I can like hardly hold my thing.
I had short sleeves on earlier today, so. I don't-
There's also
So-
there's a lot area question that we pose too, because when you have multiple users on a lot, your
Right.
code says they should be behind.
Yeah, that's-
Just want to make sure they anticipate that.
I would suggest that that the memorandum that you're going to send to the village board, that you attach both your memo and Stu's memo so that they can understand what, you're.
Well, some of the things that we said were for the review by the board. Others, where I put that section 2 down and I listed the code, I think those we can transfer over to them because they are specific to the code and asking the board to make sure you reconcile these differences. Stu probably has some of those same things too, but some of them are just advisory to you for you to make your conclusions, which you have done on a number of these things.
But I would
don't want to
agree with
create
Dennis.
conflict.
We want them to be aware that there are some internal conflicts between what exists and what's being proposed.
Yeah.
And we're not suggesting that we try to solve the problem. You may want to solve the problem.
Well, because ultimately, it's gonna come back to
Yeah,
us anyway,
yeah.
so,
Well, these other things here are simply matters that what you're doing is in conflict with something else in the code. At least we think so. They should consider that and eliminate the conflict, all right? For example, the yards fronting on a state highway are supposed to be set back a certain distance. They're either going to have that provision applicable to this section or they're not. If you have a preference on that, we can say which way it should be. But I think down here in this area, it's a little more intense development. There are cars parked a little closer to the highway than the 50-foot setback that you require down the corridor. So you may want to say that what you have is fine, but don't have it in conflict, because then what happens for you is you're going to get an application. We're going to point out that it's in conflict with the code. You may, unless it's addressed, then it goes to the ZBA or
Right.
something else. And that's what you don't want to have.
so can you ask them?
So I
be
can
aware of that?
I can handle those.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, I don't think I had a lot of that in my memo, but Stu had some more planning concerns. They were general considerations for the
Right.
board, and I think you've addressed some of those. Because the height is not a conflict, the height is something you're considering, whether you think it's appropriate or not. That we know what you want to say now. I don't know if there's anything else in the MPV memo that if we attach the memo in its entirety would lead to confusion. Because there may be some recommendations there that
You know, we're just discussing here, we have a provision in the code, there's multiple provisions, and that's part of the problem, but one of the things is that we're saying that there's not supposed to be parking in the required front yard.
Right,
And there's setbacks also. Well, the required front yard might be 50 feet, and the front yard might actually be 100 feet before you get a building. So when, the code doesn't really say you can't park in the front yard, can't park in the required front yard. And that's been a long-standing objective to try to have more landscaping along the roads. We have that provision in the code, and this,
Well, the one provision we have, though, Stu, is the
Yeah.
one for yards fronting on a state highway
Oh,
or
that
county
one,
road.
yeah.
Well, all these things have to be on state
Yeah,
or
that's
county
true,
highway
too.
roads.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
this is gonna be applicable in each case. And
Yeah.
that one, it says, except for the R.25A district,
that's- yeah.
any building with a yard fronting state way must have such yard unoccupied and open to the sky not less than 50 feet in depth. That would change things. That was a thing, that was a something we commented to you on the shops, because their setback from the state highway is much less than 50 feet. They're either gonna have to eliminate that or get some variance from what I could see.
Right.
So that should be addressed by the Board of Trustees if they don't want that.
Repeat what you just said again. The shops are,
The shops are parking closer to the state highway in the front than 50 feet. They have parking within 10 or 15 feet of the property line. There's a very wide right-of-way there.
right.
It's not the road edge, it's the property line step back
Yeah.
from the highway. So, at least that's the way I interpret this. So,
Because the proposed hotel for the shops this wouldn't affect them at all because they're way in the back. They're not
some
even,
of
they
the-
have
It's the whole
access.
lot, isn't it? The whole lot?
But that's where Dennis brought up, where other buildings are on that lot. That's what Dennis said before.
That's,
Because now you
Buildings.
take Woodbury Common, if they go forward with 2 hotels, they're way back off the 50 feet, 100 feet, and they have other buildings, so that's, and then if you do the transit, all 3 projects have a hotel and other accessories. So all 3 of those projects, in my mind, my interpretation, they cleared everything. They're 50 feet back, they're 100.
yeah, but you're,
and, you know,
but
that-
then to me, you're mixing things, because then you're saying they're not within the 50 feet because the hotel's back here,
Yep.
but then you're turning it around, you want to flip-flop it and say, but we want the whole lot to be able to have the 75% coverage. So you can't, I don't think you can do it both ways. You either have to stick to one or the other.
I just think it should be clear in the hotel overlay zone that's adopted, how you apply those provisions. And right now, I see it as a 50-foot open to the sky, which you've interpreted as no parking. If you're saying that the hotel's in the back, therefore all its parking's in the back and it doesn't apply, I don't know that, I don't know how that's going to be applied.
At this point, it's not a separate lot, though, is it?
Yeah?
It's one lot.
It's one lot, yeah.
Because
So
these
if you're
3
gonna-
projects all have, like you said, 1 lot with accessory.
So this is something they should address. And if you think that the parking that you've seen, for example, in the shops, which is an example, Woodbury Commons an example, if you don't think that's inconsistent with the zone, that's what you have, then they should just adjust this when they do the final law. They should say that provision 310.7.1.2D does not apply in the HO zone.
I would, yeah, that was 310-12.
310-12B actually is the,
I agree with that statement, that should be sent to the village board. Because these yards they are fronting, but they're. You agree with that?
I'm uncertain about that.
And you know, the village board, they have a public hearing next Thursday on this, so they're not going to have much time to review all this in a short period of time. And I know they've spent months on this, and they must have had guidance from somebody to put all this.
Yeah, they had guidance.
Yeah.
They had guidance. But the fact that they're having a public hearing doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to make a decision. I don't know, but.
Well,
Right.
sometimes they close the hearing and they adopt that night, but they
Okay,
might
all
not
right.
on this night. I don't know what
I
they're
don't know
going
if
to
Dennis
do.
can get the report.
'Cause we're throwing
we
a
can
lot
get
of
it to
things
them.
out there.
They've asked for your opinion. That's all they're looking for. They're looking for input from the public at that hearing. They're looking for input from you. I think whatever comments you have, you should provide, and we'll try to button it up and get it over to them.
Not to belabor it, I would suggest that what we've said so far, that we can send our comments to the board, and each one of us, we can, I'm sure they're going to review this meeting. We do have a village board planning member, we have a trustee in the audience, so I'm sure he's taking notes and listening to what we're saying. But I want to step back to what you said about the 75% coverage versus the 60 to 65. You're suggesting to say it's 65, I'm saying to go with the 75. The board had to have a reason for doing this, and I'm saying we're not going to agree on everything. I mean. do you
No,
have-
but what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
if you go with the 75, you're saying that pertains to the whole lot?
For a hotel.
If a hotel is included?
I think that's the ambiguity in
Yeah.
the law right now that
Yep.
needs to be flushed out.
Yep.
Because it's gonna put this board in a very bad spot. My interpretation is, and this is the problem, is it's subject to interpretation,
Yep.
that if the hotel is on the lot, you're allowed 75% total coverage
Of
on
the
that lot.
whole lot.
The whole lot. Well, and that was my suggestion, saying 75% is too much coverage on a lot, and it should be made to 65%. If it's gonna be interpreted that just the portion of the lot, and I don't know how you would do this, is allowed to cover 75%.
For the hotel?
The hotel is allowed to cover 75% of the lot, but then the rest of the lot is only allowed to be covered at 65%. I don't know, where do you draw a line and say, this is where the hotel ends and this is where the rest of the lot begins? To me, and for sake of our applicants, for sake of this board, it should be a consistent number across a lot. And that's why I'm saying it should say it's 65. My suggestion is that it stays at 65%.
And I would hope that, the response from the other side would be that they would justify their thinking why they thought that way. So would they respond to our comments? such as would
They,
No.
in the past, over 19 years, they've never responded back to our comments.
No, there's no requirement for
No.
them to respond to the comments, but they are required to request them. They're requesting them, and they'll review your report.
I mean, they can take some of our comments, some of our thoughts, or none of our thoughts and concerns, and they can just move on with what they, it also depends on what the public says next week, if the public comes out to speak. So it's purely up to the village board to listen, take notes, and make their final decision.
On the issue of coverage, as I understand it, I'm going to report that there were 3 board members that thought that 65% was appropriate, 1 board member said 75%, and you all would like to have some clarity on if a lot has multiple uses on it, which percentage would apply. Okay.
Okay. Anything else on these two
And I
laws?
guess the same thing on the parking.
Okay. I think the parking one, I have to ask that, because
Yeah.
I know I'm going to present it to the board if an application comes in, and I want to put you
Right.
in a quandary. I think they should look at that. Okay.
And Dennis, just one thing with number 4, so are they effectively getting rid of motels?
On number 4?
The
What page?
Hotel, or local law number 4. On page 1,
Yeah,
where it
page
says, we repeal the definition of hotel or motel.
This
And-
is where hotels are going to be permitted, as well as the transit village. That's my understanding. It's been, unless they're existing non-conforming uses, or they have a certain status of approval, the exemption that Kelly read before.
There is one that exists today.
Right.
Opposite the martial arts, opposite
That's
Turn
exempt.
These and that
Turn
is
Road.
still
Yeah.
considered
Then
a
it becomes a
motel, right?
non-conforming, well,
Right.
Kelly can tell you better. It's a pre-existing non-conforming use.
No?
Which what it
That's
does to them
apartments.
is it makes,
Okay.
they can't
Because I don't think they
expand.
collect the taxes on that.
Okay.
Because, so the current motel that we have is going to stay, but going forward, they're allowing hotels only. That they have to have interior access from within. My understanding from reading the law. All right. Anyone else on these two laws? We're good?
That's good.
All right, thank you. Item number 3, Kimco Woodbury Center extension request. That's been withdrawn because they've got their building permit today, so we don't have to do that. So we're going to move on to the next application, which is Ulta Woodbury Center. Discuss ARB review of proposed building facade sign for Ulta Beauty located within the Woodbury Center Shopping Center. Said property is located at the intersection of Center Drive and Route 32 and is known in the Village of Woodbury tax maps as Section 225, Block 2, Lot 1.12. Do you see where the white sign is? Flip it over, you can see in the little
There's a
crevice.
little
there's
tiny,
Little black button.
that's it, push it in. Well, you
Right
look
where your
like it.
thumb is, where your right thumb is?
Glasses on.
It's a test for attorneys.
Hey, some of us.
evening, everyone. I'm Dominic Cordisco from Drake Loeb, here with Chris Simonello on behalf of Kimco for the Woodbury Center. And thank you for acknowledging we did receive our building permit today for what we were before you previously regarding the pylon sign. So we had only asked for that extension just in case we needed it. We had the application in, but it was coming up on a possible expiration in May. So with that, we had also submitted an application to the building department for the sign for Ulta that would be on the facade. And the actual sign aspect of that application was deemed to be acceptable by the building department, but was what triggered us to make an application before you was the fact that Ulta requires the installation of awnings. And so there was changes being made to the facade with the addition of these awnings. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Chris to walk you through what's proposed for the Ulta facade.
Thank you, Dominic. Good evening, members of the board. Chris Simonello, Kimco Realty, 3333 New Hyde Park Road in New Hyde Park, New York. It's nice seeing everybody again. Last time I was here, you granted approval for the pylon modifications, and like Dominic said, we received the permit for that today, so the timing couldn't be more appropriate. Like Dominic said, we're here tonight to present the last leg of Ulta's entitlements at Woodbury Center. Just to reorient the board and the public, Kimco owns Woodbury Center, which is anchored by Kohl's, Forever 21, Michaels. Currently, Kohl's is undertaking a downsize, and Aldi will be their subtenant. The purpose of the application right now is that Ulta is going to be replacing Pier 1, a 9,700 square foot tenant that vacated May of last year. So we've had an empty, almost 10,000 square foot space in our center for approximately 1 year right now. And as part of our lease with Ulta, they require certain modifications to the facade that require consent from this board. Primarily, the new awnings that are in orange, the storefront glass, will be added. Basically, what we're doing with the facade is removing Pier 1's old sign, skim coating the entire facade to match the existing ephes, adding required awnings that Ulta is asking for. We've done a lot of Ulta deals in recent history in my region. They're one of the only brick and mortar tenants that are expanding right now in this challenging market. And just like Coca-Cola, they have a certain brand, they have a certain logo. As a publicly traded company, they need a specific identity. Every single Ulta that we're doing right now has these awnings, some type of orange component to their sign, which, being that they're one of the only tenants that's expanding, they have all the leverage right now. They happen to be one of the best-in-class tenants, and they do happen to maintain their stores in the highest regard, and they would do so here as well. We have not had an issue maintaining any of the Ulta stores that we have in the Kimco portfolio. As far as the materials are concerned, it's existing ephes. Everything is going to match. If you would allow me to respond to the letter that we received from your engineer, I think it may be helpful in guiding the presentation. As far as the materials are concerned, other than the awnings, which are going to be cloth underneath the canopy, everything is going to match the existing facade. There was a question on color discrepancy. That's just a matter of the rendering not matching the existing. The full intent is that the color is going to match identically. One thing that I failed to mention, another addition, is that it's not an addition. We're actually going to be repainting the canopy from this green color to this bronze-looking color, which is more earth tone, more in style, easier to maintain, and we think it's in line with the character of Woodbury Center. As far as the glass is concerned, the letter that we received was questioning why we didn't continue the glass over here next to Scrubs and Beyond. That's because if we were going to add glass there, we'd have to disrupt an active tenant, which we don't necessarily which we do not have the right to do in their lease. So we would like some latitude with respect to that design feature when considering hopefully an approval tonight. Let's see. There seemed to be a discrepancy between the type of glass that we're putting in there. We're going to put standard glass to match existing. I think it's difficult to render clear glass, but rest assured the intent of the glass is to match the existing features that are there currently. As far as the awnings are concerned, I think I mentioned that, this is a fully negotiated lease that Ulta requires to have these awnings. They're going to be maintained by Kimco and also by Ulta. I mean, I think if you go back, if you look at the site and see how it's maintained right now, that's a testament to how we're going to maintain these awnings here. As a publicly traded company ourselves, we don't want the facade or the awnings to look outdated, old, dilapidated, weathered. We have a property management department that's going to be maintaining this up to first-class standards. As far as lighting, there are not going to be any lighting changes proposed, and not increasing the footprint of the building. And then Dominic already attested to the sign. It's our understanding that this is a compliance sign, and if variances are required, that would be Ulta's responsibility to apply for, and we would assist. So in closing, we believe that the facade and storefront modifications being requested enhance the look and feel of the shopping center and are in line with the character of Woodbury Center, and we respectfully request your approval and consideration tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to jump over to Dennis.
Yeah.
With your memo.
Well, I don't have to go over much of the memo because the applicant did that for me, which is fine. Just two things. The Ulta sign, is it backlit, or how do you light the sign? Do you know that?
We typically light them with internally lit LEDs. That would be part of Ulta's building, Ulta's sign permit.
Okay, it's not a spotlight or anything like that
No.
on the building? Okay. And there are certain requirements in our code for how the distance of the letters off the building face and what you're allowed to do. You'll be required to comply with all the requirements of the building department to get that.
Yes.
One other thing, since you did go through everything, is there's a change in the location of the entrance door for Talbot's. Was that intentional, or is that just a drafting thing? I'm surprised that, I didn't think they were part of the application. They're moving from the left-hand corner in the upper picture to a couple of bays over to the right.
That's a drafting issue.
This is-
We're not going to be, the focus of the application is the Pier 1 space. That may just be a drafting issue.
We figured that was the case, but wasn't sure. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay. I know I didn't get any other requests for any other reports. Kelly, question to you. Do we have to reaffirm prior seeker? Do we have to have a public hearing?
This would be a type 2 action under secret. You do need a public hearing.
Okay. Chris, I'm going to jump over to you. Thoughts, concerns, questions?
What's the finished headroom between when the awning goes in and the sidewalk that's there? It's kind of hard. It looks like it's right over the door. There's no dimension.
I quite frankly don't know the answer to that question. It is going to be underneath the canopy.
Right.
I would have to say that the height from the bottom of the awning, if these are 8-foot doors.
It's above the door.
It's above the door, so I would say it's definitely going to be above the door. If the door is 8 to 10 feet, it's going to be anywhere from 10 to 12 feet, but I don't have an exact dimension for you right now.
Okay. Other than that,
Yeah.
I've seen the store sign. I'm fine with that, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Anything else, Chris?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Sandy?
Is that coming out past it'll come out past the roof?
It's an yeah,
So
yeah.
it'll come out past the roof, okay.
But it'll be contained underneath the canopy.
Yeah, the canopy
Oh,
that's
it'll be
currently,
underneath.
it's underneath the
It'll
canopy.
be underneath the canopy, but fully contained from the sun. It's not gonna protrude past the curb line. It's gonna be underneath the canopy.
Okay. That's all.
Robert?
The beige color above the canopy, is that the color you're going for, or is it,
It's a discrepancy.
it's a discrepancy? I like the beige, to tell you.
Yeah. No, there's a discrepancy with the two pictures, with the drafting. Anything
Well,
else?
the beige color of the facade or the canopy?
Above the canopy, the
Behind
beige
altar.
color.
That's
The
the-
discrepancy between the top picture.
It is a drafting discrepancy. The intent is to match the existing color.
Looks better, though.
I know. Unfortunately, we can't skim coat the entire facade.
Okay, so, being that, they're changing the green to the brown color for the canopy, is that a building department? I mean, they can change colors, we don't have to approve that.
Well,
You're not here for the color change,
It's here for ARB.
for the awnings.
Yeah, but I think everything needs to be consistent. I mean, it's your opinion. It just, as long as it's consistent. And, I mean, if they were changing it to purple, let's say, and then they were putting orange awnings underneath it, you might say that, well, the purple doesn't match the orange awnings, okay? And you can have one, but not both.
Well, that's, I'm trying to get to that because
Appearance is for you.
the application is just for the entrance pylon and the auxiliary pylon that was,
No, that's another one.
I think they put the wrong application on this one. That's attached. Yeah, I think the application that's stamped, that dated April 4th, that should have been with the pylon. It shouldn't have been, I don't see an application actually for this Ulta.
Yeah, that may have
If
been,
I'm reading it right.
it may have been the incorrect one attached.
Yeah.
We may have done that.
Yeah, which is okay. So I guess we're gonna have to have a public hearing, but do you want them to fill out a ARB for the color paint that they're going to use for the canopy? I mean,
I think you approved an ARB for this structure. They're now coming in with orange.
I'm talking about
bunting.
above it. the canopy.
Understood.
Yeah.
And I think that this is part of that, and if they're putting in a different color, if they're gonna come in with materials and colors, they should tell you everything they're doing, and
So have
that's
it
will be
there
in your
before.
public hearing. I mean, if you have any problem with the colors, I think you ought to tell them now, but if you don't, then it's just a matter of the public hearing and seeing if anything comes out of that.
Okay. Or,
Have that wrapped into this.
right. You okay with the, going from the green to the brown?
yes.
You're okay with the green? All right. So what I need from you, before we have the public hearing, you need to submit an ARB form.
We had one prepared, but it
I don't know
may-
where, yeah.
Right.
One for the awning, for the orange awnings, and then one for the canopy going, the color name for the canopy that you're repainting to the brown.
Yes.
Okay, so that,
Combined into one ARB.
that's not gonna hold you up, just so that we get that into the building department. Okay.
And they're gonna
Anything,
bring the materials next time?
at the public hearing, you'll bring a sample of the awning material and the paint sample, that's
The colors.
the colors, that's all we.
Sure, yeah.
That's your sample,
That's fine.
okay.
As far as the ephes is concerned, because we're replacing existing, we don't need a sample of the ephes, do we?
The colors are staying the same?
Colors are staying the same.
Yeah. Now, the ephes, we're good with that, because the ephes is not changing. It's just the canopy and the awning.
Just, the new materials have to blend in your opinion, with what they have, but they're not changing that, that's fine.
Okay. All right, anything else from anybody? Because then I'm going to ask for some motions here. Motion to declare this a type 2 action.
I'll second.
Okay, I'll make the motion, that's fine. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. A motion to schedule a public hearing for May 22nd
I'll make the motion. Sorry.
with the draft resolution of approval drafted also by the attorney, and that's Sandy.
I second it.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So our next meeting is May 22nd. And in the next week, if you can get the ARB form in to the building department, and then bring the samples in with you for the hearing.
Sure. We will
Okay.
certainly do that. Thank you very much.
All right, anything else you need from us?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome, have a good night.
Sure, you too. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Natalie, just a point, I want to go over the agenda for the 22nd. Tonight, if we can. All right, good. Because I'll be out of reach. All right, next item on the agenda, or are we adjourning? Only kidding. Did you see John's face?
German, I'll second.
Woodbury Common is next on the agenda, is to discuss SECRA for proposed Phase 5 center renovations to include 2 hotels with related spa and restaurant facilities, expansion of the existing parking garage, development of a second parking garage, additional infill retail and related improvements. Said property is located within the Woodbury Common Outlet Center off of Route 32. It is known on the Village of Woodbury tax maps as Section 226, Block 1, Lot 1, and Section 225, Block 1, Lot 70.2. Is anyone here to discuss the project? Come forward. Just for the board members. Tonight's, Kelly, I just want you to make sure I'm doing this right. Tonight, Woodbury Common, what we're looking for is to declare our lead agency status, review the EAF Part 2, and adopt a positive declaration. That's what we're here for tonight, and
Yes, so first is to, you declared your intent to be lead agency back in December. More than 30 days have passed and you have not received any objections to that. So the board is able to assume lead agency status. We prepared for the board a draft Part 2 EAF and sent that to you previously. If you have any questions or comments, we can go over those. I also emailed you a draft positive declaration based on that EAF Part 2. Now, you had received an additional document today that was actually in error. Sorry, Tom. But you received a Mazer memo. That was not actually to be distributed to the board. That was supposed to be distributed directly to the applicant. So we had authorization to work with the applicant, the consultants did, on an initial draft of a scoping document. You know, is there anything outlandish that is missing? For example, are they missing the plant study or anything like that? Let them know any big changes, and then they could present a draft scoping document to this board. So that memo was actually supposed to be internal, but I didn't want it to cause any confusion. So the last part that we're here for is the applicant submitted their draft scoping document. You received it by email today, and we have hard copies here, but we'll give those to the building department so they can all be stamped in. But you did receive it today by email, and so they are looking to have their public scoping session set for the 22nd as well. So I know I just said a lot, in like all at once, so if you want me to go through it, I think we can.
just give me a second. Before I forget, I would like to make a motion that we declare ourselves lead agency.
I second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that's done. 4 yes. Okay. Whoever wants to speak first, go ahead.
I'll put an appearance on the record. Jennifer Kinerick from Price, Me, Schulman, and D'Arminio on behalf of Simon, also known as the Woodbury Commons, as we all are well aware. I have with me this evening John Villapiano from Simon as the representative, and I'm not going to reiterate what Kelly said, but because this is exactly what we're here for, as she noted on the record.
Okay.
I would also second the motion that you guys serve as lead agency. I look forward to the process. It'll be fun.
Sure.
Again,
Are you sure? Are you 100% sure? Okay, so with all that being said, I just lost my note. Okay, so we did the lead agency, that's good. Everyone has the EAF Part 2?
Yes.
Do you want to go through that and review it? You have a copy of it, I presume? Okay.
Yes, I did provide the applicant with drafts of the Part 2 as well as the positive declaration.
Okay.
They prepared, they were ready, but.
Do you want me to go page by page? Does anyone have any thoughts, concerns with the EAF?
Could we have some explanation of the arrows as far as discrepancies?
No, so the arrows, the way that I prepare these is, the DEC is not very clear. They say, you know, yes or no, and if you check yes, it's either a moderate to large impact, or no or small impact, and I feel like no impact versus there is an impact is kind of a big deal. So I put little arrows on the right-hand side if it's a small impact rather than a no. So the arrows on the side, the right-hand side, mean that there's a small impact, just so that you know that, because technically I could have checked yes and then checked all of the no's, and this just gives you a little clarification as to where we thought that there were impacts.
So they're all small impacts, not none, not a no, right?
Those, the ones
Yeah,
with
with
the
the
arrows,
arrows.
all small impacts, yes.
Okay.
And the ones without an arrow are no impact.
Are no
is that right?
impact.
Well, you will notice in here, there's a difference from the typical ones you receive. You receive a lot of these from Kelly, and typically they have those check marks in the no or small impact, and they have the arrows. What you'll see in this one is there are a number of locations where the moderate to large impact is checked.
Right.
That's different, and that's where you get to your point of a positive declaration on at least one significant environmental impact. And there are a number of those in the areas that you would expect them, aesthetic resources and on traffic. I mean, that jumps out. There's one on energy, and I think that there was one more on consistency with community character in your zoning. So there are a number of items there where it's recommended you might want to consider large, moderate to large impact.
And I don't use an arrow to specify between moderate and large because it's already a significant enough impact that you're going to be looking further at it. But there's a big difference between no impact and there being even a small impact.
All right.
Thank you.
Just for the record and for clarification for people who are going to be watching this out in Woodbury, your proposals, you're not breaking any new ground that's there that's around the perimeter. Everything is being done internally that's already within the parking areas and where certain buildings are, correct? You're not going to be expanding outward from where the ring road is?
That is correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that, because someone asked me that, and I'm like, no, it's all within the ring road. Okay. With that being said, I know you have the first, Sandy, you want to discuss, I see you're highlighted over there. The proposed action may involve excavation and removal of more than 1,000 tons of natural material. That's my question. Your natural material, they're really, everything's, it's either blacktop or concrete down there, so, and it's flat. Are you going to be excavating
what
downward?
page are you referencing?
Oh, page 1 of
Page
10.
1 of 10.
On the EF,
D.
This first one. Letter D.
letter D?
Yeah.
I mean, that's one
I
of your
mean,
questions,
yeah,
is
I mean,
it?
are you talking about trees? When you talk about natural resources or
So
materials?
We actually put that down as a small impact, and we answered it that way because it references back to the EAF Part 1, and that question in the EAF Part 1 said that they checked yes, does the project include any excavation, mining, dredging during construction? But then after you answer that part yes, there's some follow-up questions, and one of them said the volume, and that was TBD. So since we didn't know, there was at least some impact. So they may come back in the EIS that they're gonna have to draft and say that they aren't excavating that, but since we didn't know and the volume wasn't provided, there was at least a small impact. So that's how that answer happened and how they're likely gonna respond to it based on what the
I
geologist stated.
I suggest when you're looking at this, every one of these statements says it may involve, so that they have to look at it, you have to look at it, but it doesn't say it necessarily will.
Okay. Anyone have questions on page 1 of 10? I guess that's a good thing. Anyone have questions on page 2? Now, where it says moderate to large impact, that will be looked at further on in the next step?
Yes.
Okay. So everyone, we're okay with page 2? Mm-hmm. Page 3? Page 4? Page 5?
You're moving too fast.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not up to 5 yet.
I'm sorry.
I'll get there.
I know they stick together.
Yeah, it is. Okay, I'm on 5 now.
We're good? On 5? So page 6?
Section 9, letter F. There are similar projects visible within the following distance of the proposed project. So we're looking at a project directly across the street. So don't they have to, I mean,
Which project is across the street?
Well, okay.
catty corner.
Shops is not, you're referring to the shop?
Yes.
Because that's not constructed yet, so it says there's similar projects visible.
Visible.
And since it isn't there yet, it's not visible.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so then page 7. Eight. Page 9.
Why, can we go back to 8?
Sure.
Let's see. B,
Under which one?
the proposed action may result in construction of paved parking.
Which?
Right here.
Number 13?
Yes.
Number 13. B, the proposed action may result in the construction of paved parking area for 500 or more vehicles. It says moderate. Does that
No,
allude to the parking deck?
it says moderate to large, yeah.
Moderate to large, yes. So in the EAF Part 1, they indicated that there would be a net increase of 2,140 parking spaces. So that's why I said moderate to large study.
Oh, so it's not paved, it's the parking deck.
I believe that that is for the parking garage that's proposed,
Is that correct?
for the new spaces.
She's shaking her head yes.
Right.
That is correct.
Thank you, John.
And that's going to have solar panels on top, that one, right?
We haven't gotten that far.
If the board would permit, yes, we would intend to do that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's the trend these days.
Yep.
And is it possible if you know, we have a discussion that you could retrofit the other parking deck to solar panels?
I have had internal conversations, and there was a plan, a proposal to move forward with that. And I said, I will take care of getting your approval. So yes, that will be included in our application.
One more thing, I just went to a conference on that, and they were talking about canopies in the parking lot that generate solar energy, provide shade for the cars, which reduces the amount of gasoline that cars use to cool down the car, because the car's super hot, and it's also more of a convenience to the people that park there. Is that something under consideration?
Not currently. For the remaining surface parking, that's not currently under consideration. But that is one of the benefits to doing it on the top level of a parking garage.
And also, would that provide recharging for electric cars and so forth? Would you have that?
I don't know of a current plan right now, but that is an initiative across the Simon portfolio. So if that is something the board wishes for us to look at, I'm sure that would not be an issue.
Thank you.
Anyone else on page 8?
Yes, under impact on noise, odor, and light, under A. You had proposed a helipad. Is that still in the plans?
Yes.
Okay, so then Kelly, would that be moderate if we're going from no noise to?
Actually, that's a good point. So they had, in the, just going back to the EAF Part 1, the one that responds to is, will the proposed action produce a noise that will exceed ambient noise levels during construction operation of both? It was actually responded to no, but I responded here and proposed small, thinking temporary construction impacts, but I wasn't thinking about the helipad. That is something that I think would then change this to a moderate to large.
Okay.
All right, so we're in agreement that's going to, number 15A is going to be changed to moderate? We're okay with that, everyone? Mm-hmm. Okay. Page 9?
Same on E, as far as, I don't know how often or frequent these helicopters are gonna be in, but especially in the fall and the winter, the lighting, I think,
So you want E to moderate to large?
I-
And to take, well, that might be good to include as F, other impacts.
okay.
Say impacts from helicopters.
Now, the helipad that's at the state police, there's no lights around it,
Yeah, we'll just say helicopter.
right? The
I don't know.
The helipad that's currently at the New York State Trooper Barracks, there are no lights around it.
Right, but
I'm just making a point because
I'm
I
talking
don't-
more from the helicopters themselves.
They have that big front light when they come down, but we'll just add it
Okay,
as F.
I'm just trying to,
Say helicopter impacts, and then all of those will
Sure.
have.
okay.
Because they're different than anything you've looked at before.
All right, so we're gonna make that moderate. Anything else on page 9? Page 10? Okay. So you'll prepare a revised one and have me sign off on one of the sheets?
The EAF Part 2 does actually need a signature, so
Yes.
if you want to make a motion to accept it as revised, then I'll provide a revised one for the building department, so they have a final one in their.
Bless you.
Bless you.
I'll offer a motion that we accept the revised EAF with the changes noted tonight.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next item then is the positive declaration. Is there any changes on here that anyone noted? Did you look at this one?
Yeah, again, under the description of action, there's no mention of the helipad. I think that should be put in there.
I didn't know that was proposed, so, yeah. So after additional infill of retail spaces, would,
Put comma helipad?
and helipad, yeah, helipad.
Helicopter pad and